going to be focusing on. As mentioned a little bit earlier, in Zambia, there's a divided opposition that has been rallied behind Brian Ndubile just days before the country heads to the polls. And then while looking at South Africa, former President Jacob Zuma's political twins, Duduzile and Duduzane, have taken very different paths within the MK party. And then crossing over into East Africa, in Kenya, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna is already positioning himself for a 2027 presidential race. That, of course, will be taking place in August 2027, if I'm not mistaken, in Kenya. And he's seeking the backing of veteran politician, Wycliffe Oparanya, as he takes on the current president of Kenya, President William Ruto. So what do these developments tell us about the future of opposition politics, political succession, and the battle for power across the continent? To help us unpack this is none other than, drumroll please, Carien Du Plessis. Hi, Carien, how are you?
Hi, Lee, I'm good, thanks. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I thought you were still in Zambia, because you're always living the good life. Like, you're either in Zambia or in Kenya. I'm like, okay.
No, I'm living a good life in Joburg. We're having a good winter. So, well, we're about to get cold, but it's not too bad. And we have sun here. You have sun where you are.
Yeah, no, I always have sun, but Joburg is also the good life. I think the whole continent is. So, Carien, let's get straight into it. If in Zambia, the opposition has managed to unite behind Brian Ndubile after months of division, is this unity enough to seriously challenge the current president, Hichilema of Zambia?
Yeah, well, Lee, I mean, I'm not a what do you call it, fortune teller, and there are no reliable polls at the moment. But from what I hear, if I were to venture a guess, no. Although he has made Mundubile has made a really, really good push, and it seems that, he's got a lot of support and he's managed to rally a lot of people behind him. But from what I hear from people who are in the know, tell me that it might not be enough to defeat the incumbent President Hichilema, who's also made a really strong push towards the election, which is happening on the 13th, which is the Thursday, I think.
Thursday, yeah.
Yes. And I mean, they're having their final rallies. I think this weekend. Apparently, the opposition were not scheduled to rally in Lusaka. The Electoral Commission has a schedule according to which you can have rallies, and Lusaka is actually one of the places where Brian Mundubile has a lot of support. I spoke to people while I was in Zambia. I spoke to a lot of people, and the sentiment was very much they want President Hichilema out. The cost of living is too high, and they like this new guy Mundubile. So I think it puts him at a bit of a disadvantage if he can't have his rallies this weekend in Lusaka. But it's going to be an interesting election to watch. I mean, Zambians have been known to surprise us in the past. They do tend to be quiet and then switch allegiance on election day. And the last election was in 2021 when I was there. You sort of drive past the voting stations, and then there were long queues right into the afternoon, and that sort of told me, something's up. The Patriotic Front might be suffering when the results come, and it was true. Then, a UPND, President Hichilema's party won. So I guess this election might be judged by the lengths of the queues on elections day. The Electoral Commission said that the results will be out on the 17th. So we'll have to see. If it's very close, I think if nobody gets over, I think I sound correct, but I think if nobody gets over 50%, there will be a rerun. But the analysts I've spoken to are not expecting that to happen. So we'll see. But I mean, the opposition's been complaining about their rallies being broken up, violence being used, intimidation tactics. So we'll also have to see what the observers say about about that. There's a few
Whether it was
observer
free and
missions.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whether the elections were credible.
I mean, I think like with elections, like not just in Africa but globally, we're kind of sitting in the time where so many things we never thought would happen could possibly happen. I think about Senegal and the current president of Senegal, Faye. He was in prison, I think 2 weeks before he was elected as president, you know? So he definitely couldn't campaign. So, it's open. This is I think from 2020 onwards, what's been proven true is that literally anything can happen, and it almost always does, you know? Like none of us can
Yeah,
tell the
and I
future,
mean,
but we brace ourselves, yeah.
exactly. And I tend to blame COVID for it. There were a lot of doomsayers who said, after COVID, there will be wars, there will be elections, uprising, sort of election upsets, uprisings. But I mean, I guess it also started in 2016 with Brexit. I mean, nobody expected that.
Yeah,
So,
nobody
so
expected that,
maybe,
yeah.
yeah, so maybe we're just going through a universal strange mood,
And nobody
maybe.
expected Trump
In
as well.
time.
So maybe let's put them together, Trump and Brexit together. Nobody expected that, and here we all are. And moving on
Exactly.
before we get ourselves into trouble. Now, Bishop Trevor Mwamba says administrative hurdles prevented him from contesting under UNIP. How significant are these claims, and what do they tell us about the challenges facing opposition parties ahead of elections?
Yeah, I mean, it was UNIP. It was, if you remember, it was Kenneth Kaunda's party, the post liberation, or what do you call it, post independence party in Zambia. So it's they used to be a big deal, but I mean, they, like as I said, Zambians tend to change their mind. They lost a lot of support. But the opposition parties are claiming that the Registrar of Societies, which is where the parties register, threw all kinds of administrative hurdles in their way in order to register. Sort of either register the parties, register the leaders. There were also infighting in many of these parties. Bishop Mwamba said, some of it's been orchestrated by the governing party. Um, and sort of people are getting paid to cause trouble in some of these opposition parties. So yeah, so there's been a lot of administrative hurdles, and I expect that the observation missions will say something about this. Whether it was fair that people couldn't register. Bishop Mwamba told me a very dramatic story, which I wrote about in the Africa Report. When they tried to when you register your they say when you file your candidacy as a presidential candidate, you have to bring I think 100 supporters from each province have to go and show their support physically to you when you register, and there was some drama around that, and sort of
Yeah.
in the end, when Brian Mundubile registered his candidacy, all these supporters had to go to Lusaka. So yeah, so this, it must have been really dramatic scenes, when this happened. I wasn't there for the
Sure.
occasion, but yeah, I think it will be interesting to say what the observer missions say about this election. I mean, obviously in Zambia there have been issues before. It's not like it's the first time that an opposition party claims that there are hurdles. You can remember President Hichilema himself was imprisoned. He was
Yes,
silenced.
yes.
A lot of violence was meted out against him. So this isn't new. It's just that I think people didn't expect that Hichilema would do the same thing. If these claims are,
Or to be
are
believed,
true,
yeah.
but they do, yeah,
Yeah.
they do seem to be, analysts do seem to give them credence. So.
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess by this time next week, I believe we'll know who the new president of Zambia will be. And just like all round, my hope is just that the elections are fair and they're free and it's safe for Zambians, because that is like a basic, just the basic right for any nation. Now, crossing over to South Africa, Duduzane Zuma has been elevated within the MK party while his twin sister, Duduzile, has been removed. What does this reveal about power, loyalty, and succession within the Zuma political dynasty?
Lee, you're speaking as if anything about this is supposed to make sense. Um, it's like the MK party has changed leadership so many times since it started. I mean, it is a success story in the sense that 6 months, I mean, you were mentioning it earlier, these election upsets. 6 months after the party was founded, it contested an election and it got, I think, something like 14% nationally.
I remember,
And
yeah,
it
13 or 14. I remember that. Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. And it came
Mm.
very close to actually taking power in KwaZulu-Natal. It's still claiming that it should be the governing party. And I guess if you were to sort of follow principles of the biggest party should be governing and should be putting together a coalition, I think they got over 40% in KwaZulu-Natal, province alone. Uh, so yeah, it was a success story, is still a success story, although the party's administration is really to use a good Afrikaans word, deur mekaar, very confusing. They've had 8 secretary generals since they
Sure.
were founded, no elective conferences. So all these appointments, all these changes are being made by former President Zuma himself, the party leader, and now he's even taken up the role of Secretary General, of Treasurer, fired everyone about a week or two ago. And I mean, what I could gather, yeah, and he kicked out his daughter, who was a daddy's girl, was by his side all the way through, even 20 years ago during his rape trials. She testified in his favor, and her testimony actually got him acquitted. So she's very close to her father. But somebody said to me that he believes that she and the former spokesperson of the party, Nhlamulo Ndlela, stole money from the party.
Sure.
And I want to be naughty to say, well, she is his daughter. What did he expect? I mean, from a former president accused of stealing money from the state, from large-scale state capture. But
Yeah.
anyway, so
We're
that
like moving right past that.
moving right along, that
Yeah.
upset the old man, and he
Yeah.
kicked her out, as well
Sure.
as the former spokesperson. And I mean, his son Duduzane, I think of late they had a bit of a strained relationship. From what I could gather, again, was because of business deals, because of Duduzane Zuma was close to the Gupta family, who former President Zuma was also close to. But there was some kind of fallout, which I don't 100% understand, but there was some distance between the father and the son. Also, incidentally, I mean, this is like a drama. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Incidentally, Duduzane and Duduzile are twins, 44-year-old twins, that of Zuma with his third wife, I think, Kate Mancho. But I think President Zuma felt he could trust Duduzane because he's family, because he's his son. Duduzane has previously expressed political ambitions to, I think, 2024, he wanted to run for, or 2022, he wanted to run for ANC president. That didn't happen. In 2024, he uh, um, registered his own party, I think something like, I forgot what it was called, but it sounded like some football party, almost like All Players Congress, or I forgot the name now. It slipped my mind. But it didn't contest because there were some issues with his registration. So he threw his weight behind the MK party in 2024. But he wasn't prominent until, yeah, a week or two ago when he was elevated to become deputy president. So yeah, I mean, the party's decision-making processes are not very transparent. It's difficult to say why, why the latest changes happened. But I think, it's very much run on who former President Zuma feels that he can trust, and who, or the one or two people behind him that he trusts feel that he can trust. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't think it's the end of the story yet. The
I,
astonishing thing, however, is that the party will keep growing despite
of
all the
course.
internal
Yeah.
turmoil. I
Yeah.
think
I
they
mean,
will
that might,
do.
that might be one of the things that draws people to the party. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, they're looking at doing well in the eThekwini Metro, Durban.
Definitely,
I think they might
definitely.
even take the metro, which is
Yeah.
perhaps why the Guptas. Oh, no, let me just stop there.
Yeah, I think let's move right along. Let's go to Kenya, much safer area
Read
to be
all of my
talking about.
story.
I know, right? Let's move into Kenya, much safer area to be talking about. So Edwin Sifuna is already seeking support for the 2027 presidential bid. It's so crazy to me because I feel like as though President William Ruto just got into power, and to think that Kenya has the upcoming elections in August 2027, which is basically like around the corner. But anyhow, do you feel that this is the beginning of a serious political challenge to the current president of Kenya, President William Ruto, or is it too early to determine his chances?
Well, I mean, Kenyan politics is crazy. You would think that the election is around the corner, the way that everyone's campaigning. I know Edwin Sifuna's been going around having rallies. Everyone's been going around having rallies. The President Ruto has been inviting people to State House, to this fancy pavilion that he built, giving them money. I'm not sure if you could call that
Sounds just about right.
electioneering. Call that electioneering or good governance. I don't know, but yeah. So the I mean, positioning is in full swing, and there's an insane amount of money involved in Kenyan politics as well. So if you want to become a presidential candidate, you have to find, business people to fund you, etc. And Edwin Sifuna he's young and he's energetic. He was with the ODM, Raila Odinga's party, and then got kicked out because he wouldn't throw his weight behind President Ruto, as most of the rest of the party did. So he's rallying behind his own sort of movement that he started within ODM even before he got kicked out, the Linda Mwananchi movement. And I interviewed him I think it was June, 2-3 months ago, and then he wasn't. He couldn't sort of 100% tell me that he was going to run for president, but I got the feeling that he was, something was cooking. Yeah. And he said to me, I said to him, well, he said he doesn't care if he doesn't have money, he'll crowdfund. But now it seems that some business people have thrown their weight around him. There's an issue with them registering the party now. I think in the past week they tried to register and then found that, I mean, it almost sounds like Zambia, sort of found that, surprise, surprise, the party name has already been registered with, with the authority that, where you have to register the party. So now they're threatening to have protests until they actually manage to register the party name. I mean, they're accusing, I think, the government of blocking them by registering the party name in, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm not quite sure how it happened, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, when I think about like Kenya, it's like I feel like the reason why it feels as though President Ruto just got into power is because it's been so like when it comes to people being hot all the time, Kenyans are hot all the time, and I have Kenyan family, so it's like Kenyans are hot all the time, even politically. I mean, just think of all the protests, think of everything. It's like, I think it's one of the regions in Africa where people are so politically engaged, and it doesn't matter their age or the generation, people in Kenya are politically engaged all the time, So I can imagine, I mean, you would know, you go there fairly often. So I can imagine with Edwin Sifuna, if they decide that they want to protest, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to come out because I think between the French and the Kenyans, these are the people who've got PhDs in protesting. Let's just put it out there. Oh, French, Kenyan, South Africa, PhDs in protesting. You know what I mean? So I really think that I think like also I also am curious what you think about what's going to happen just safety wise in Kenya, because that's always another thing coming, with elections and people protesting. Like Kenya is not a country, unfortunately, that has not been marred by political violence severally around election time. And so do you think with Edwin Sifuna and his team and his party, pardon me, protesting, do you think we're going to see any more kind of political violence, or how do you think that will play out?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is a good question. Sifuna has managed to draw large crowds when he goes to rallies. But as you know, I think 2020, 2024 and subsequent protests and he's thrown his weight behind. Yeah. So since 2024, Gen Z has had, or they call it the Gen Z protests. Young people have been going to the streets, protesting about tax, protesting about, I think there were fuel issues. There was
exposing people's mistresses. I'm not making that up. It was all over. That's how they were going after people. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
It's great, but I mean, but as you remember, these protests were violently suppressed. You know, I think recently there was some kind of anniversary. I think in July there was an anniversary of protests even before the Gen Z protests, and there were more police and plainclothes police out in the streets than there were protesters. People were just too scared to go protesting because some, you know, governments. Yeah, and they seem to be after these protesters, and there's violent suppression of protests, and extrajudicial killings have been alleged. So I'm not sure about the protests, but Edwin Sifuna has thrown his weight behind the Gen Zs, and I think, you know, he's one of the candidates, one of the potential candidates who might get the most support from the Gen Z, you know, sort of crowd. But yeah, we'll have to see whether there will be protests, and if there are protests, if they're violently suppressed again. It's really concerning. I mean, it's really unpleasant. The way that, you would think, you know, just give people the right to protest. I mean, I remember with and I call it the xenophobic protests in South Africa, the anti-illegal immigration protests on the 30th of June, when President Ramaphosa said, well, you know, you guys can go and protest, you have the right to protest, but do so peacefully. And I thought, gosh, you know, if I were president, I would have violently suppressed those protests. But he gave them the space anyway. And then I remember Larry Maduo, a Kenyan journalist who works for CNN, made a remark about this and said, well, you know, look, at least people are given the right to express themselves. And yeah, I kind of wish that that would be the case in Kenya as well. But it's really scary. I mean, I have friends who went to the 2024 protests and who haven't gone to subsequent attempts to protest because they were just too scared of the violence. So we will see, and we will see if Edwin Sifuna manages to register himself. And I mean, there's also been a attempt by the former president Uhuru Kenyatta to unite the opposition. And they might include Sifuna in that sort of alliance, the Azimio alliance. So
well, I guess it's going to be
I think lots of things will happen still.
Yeah, a lot can happen between now and August 2027. But one thing is definitely certain, that Kenya is going to be a hotbed. And I think that from week to week, month to month, we are going to be seeing a lot of rapid updates, because that's just the nature of politics in Kenya. But we'll be catching up with you again, Carien. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and happy Women's Day to you out in South Africa, and have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lee. I'm not so sure if I'm very happy about Women's Day. We still have a long way to go, but let it be a reminder that we still have a long way to go as women.
Definitely, but we'll take the wins where we can, definitely. Carien Du Plessis, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Enjoy your Sunday. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge.